This is a quick video of all the stitches I use most frequently when I'm making my embroidery projects. The first thing you need to do when you're making a sampler is to stretch your fabric in a hoop so you can make your stitches easier. You can tighten your hoop at the top and then you pull around the edges to make it taut in the middle. The first stitch that I'm demonstrating here is called the running stitch. You simply put the needle in and out of the fabric in even spaces. My favorite stitch that I use most frequently is the back stitch. You stitch out a space and then you go back into the hole from the previous stitch, and that creates a back stitch. There I am taking it out a space. And then there it is going back into the hole from the last space. Another stitch I frequently use is the stem stitch. This makes a thicker line. A lot of times I use it on the exterior lines around an image. When you make this stitch, you make it kind of similar to a back stitch, except for you keep the floss on the top and you stitch back with the floss looping over it. Another stitch that I use a lot is the French knot. The French knot takes a little bit of practice to learn. You have to loop it a few times around the needle. I normally go around 3, and then you put your needle back into the same hole that it came from and pull it through, and you should have a nice neat little knot just like that. I fill space with a silk stitch sometimes. All you're doing is making long stitches right next to each other, filling in the space. This stitch is called a fishbone stitch. I call it the leaf stitch because I typically fill my leaves in with this stitch. What you do is you go down the center line and you alternate back and forth, coming out the top, going down just a little bit every time, and it will fill in and make a nice design. You just have to make sure you go back and forth and follow the lines from your drawing, going down just a little bit every time. Another stitch I like to use when I'm doing my embroidery projects is if I have a dot or just some unspecified shape that I need to fill in, I'll fill it with a flower. And what you're doing with the flower is you stitch out, you stitch back into the same hole making a loop, and then you find your spot away from the center and you have your thread on the inside, and then you go back in on the bottom with your thread on the outside, and it secures your loop. For a flower, you do this all the way around 5 or 6 times, going back to the center every time, and there's the completed flower. Last petal. These are the stitches that I use when I make my embroidery projects.